Something wicked this way comes. The elites have been backed into a corner by the Brexit and the potential downfall of the EU. Populism is sweeping the globe, while a still unseen event between the globalists' arrogant and criminal one-sided policies against the law-abiding freedom of the average American is reaching a breaking point. In an opinion piece posted today on the Wall Street Journal, former Secretary of State, war criminal, and New World Order cheerleader Henry Kissinger put it bluntly to any of the elites listening. Kissinger wrote, "The multilateral approach based on open borders for trade and the movement of peoples is increasingly being challenged. And now an act of direct democracy intended to reaffirm the status quo has rendered a damning verdict. However, challenging this expression of popular sentiment, ignoring the concerns it manifests, is a path to greater disillusionment. The Brexit vote has unleashed the anxieties of two continents and of all those who rely upon the stability that their union of purpose provides. To inspire the confidence of the world, Europe and America must demonstrate confidence in themselves. As far as confidence in Congress and the executive branch goes, the average American has been fed up for years, and the elites Mr. Kissinger would pander to are completely clueless." Paul Joseph Watson writes, Council on Foreign Relations member James Traub argues that the elite need to rise up against the mindlessly angry, ignorant masses in order to prevent globalization from being derailed by the populist revolt that led to Brexit and the rise of Donald Trump. Traub's tone is so contemptuous, he even describes the pro-Trump Republican base as know-nothing voters and sneers at voters in Poland for being concerned about values and tradition, while stressing that the push for further globalization will pit poor and non-white and marginal citizens against working-class and middle-class whites, whom he describes as angry fist-shakers. Well then, how do Traub and his tiny number of delusional ilk intend on rising up against the so-called ignorant masses? Killer robots? The UK's Sun newspaper claims terrorists are actively seeking to build a deadly army of intelligent killer robots. Yeah, right. Terrorists building the Terminator. But the Sun continues. That's the terrifying claim from a piece of authoritative research published by the United Nations, which recently held an urgent meeting to discuss the threat posed by murderous machines. Experts from dozens of countries convened in Geneva to consider the grim implications of lethal autonomous weapon systems, laws, which are capable of killing without needing to have a human at the controls. And therein lies the elite's go-to plan. The United Nations Army, be they terrorist robots, child-raping soldiers, radical Islamists, or simply your local city council member. By hook or by crook, the United Nations socialist tsunami known as Agenda 2030, with a 15-year master plan to transform the world, is underway. U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch announced the Strong Cities Network at the UN in New York in September of 2015. Basically, a cancerous globalization of your neighborhood police force with its sights set on violent extremists, i.e. constitutionalists, aka Americans. A handful of cities have begun the transformation, as Alex Newman of the New American writes, wherein control of local law enforcement is handed over to a London-based think tank called the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. It's not just any old alliance that is behind the ISD. A quick search of the group's website reveals the identity of its board of trustees, a cadre of internationalists that is second to none. Among the 14 board members is found Charles Guthrie, Baron Guthrie of Craigiebank, a member of the House of Lords, who currently acts as a non-executive director of global financier N.M. Rothschild & Sons, and represents the firm's interest on the Trilateral Commission. Guthrie also spoke at the 2011 meeting of the Bilderberg Group. Meanwhile, the UN is stockpiling billions of dollars worth of food and vaccines in the United States for what exactly? Michael Snyder of the Economic Collapse blog writes, an NPR report indicates that most of the supplies are medical in nature, and this includes millions of doses of vaccines. Could it be possible that the government is anticipating a major pandemic in our near future? And according to Reuters, global demand for food has already been surging. And one new report indicates that it won't be too long before we could see a doubling of food prices. And with all of this comes a recent posting of UN vehicles being transported through Virginia. Yes, debunking troll, we are all aware that the 16,600-pound vehicles designed to withstand gas attacks and small arms fire are manufactured in the United States. And this could possibly be much ado about nothing. But sightings of the transportation of UN vehicles all across the United States have been an ongoing occurrence. With the expanding erosion of the Bill of Rights, independence from tyranny is reaching pre-American Revolution levels. The globalists, a self-serving handful of sociopathic billionaires that have long since taken possession of the neural centers of the globe's economic brain, i.e. the central banks, will stop at nothing to dominate the mechanisms they have put into place to ensure that the masses are enslaved. And what about those angry, fist-shaking masses? Undoubtedly, this forthcoming July 4th celebration will ring true with an ominous tone within the hearts and minds of the descendants of the founders that warned us this day was coming. John Bound for Infowars.com.